So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name's Arun Dehiri, and I'm here to be a moderator for a really fantastic and exciting topic that I'm sure you're all dying to hear about, which is AI. So the topic that we're going to be covering today is will AI agents reinvent telecoms and the workplace? And particularly exciting today because we have a mixture of very esteemed panelists covering the industry itself, so Salesforce, Community Fibre, and Fourth Utility. So a good mix. I wanted to kick off by, first of all, thanking the sponsors of this, being Salesforce, who I personally can't live without in my day-to-day lives. So I'm very interested to hear what they're doing to make our lives even better. So just to sort of kick things off and to warm things up, just wanted to sort of say that, you know, it's been over 2 years since OpenAI released ChatGPT, and I think there's been so many use cases. And I think what I'm certainly seeing and what I'm hearing is that people that are not familiar with what's going on and understanding these tools are starting to get left behind. So I think it's important. So this is a very important webinar for us to kind of get into things and understand how we can improve that. And I also did a bit of quick research, and I've sort of learned that agentic AI, which we're going to learn more about, is going to be worth 41 billion globally, 41 billion by 2030. So we can't ignore how big this is going to be. So that's enough for me to kick off. What I'd like to do is just introduce the esteemed panelists. If they could, starting with Jessica, please, just spend a few seconds introducing yourself and your role. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Hi, everybody. My name's Jessica Simpson, and I'm a Senior Solution Engineer at Salesforce. What I mean by that is I work with our customers from slightly more of a technical perspective, looking at their businesses and how can they derive more value and focus on their objectives. And we work very closely together to achieve that. I work in the telecommunications industry, and I have a specialism in AI and data. So thank you very much for your time today. Looking forward to the next hour.
Thanks, Jessica. Jimmy?
Good morning, everyone. Jimmy Acton from Fourth Utility. We're a consumer ISP, so very much involved in the telecoms world. I am the Chief Digital Officer and responsible for the entire customer journey. So from acquiring a customer through to supporting those customers. So AI is becoming a relevant topic and very important in our day-to-day activity. And as you can imagine, today will be an exciting hour where I can share some insights and learn a bit from the rest of the panel.
Thank you. Mark?
Yes, hi, Mark Thorniley from Salesforce. I lead our strategic accounts team in the telco arena in the UK. I've been here for about 8 years. 6 of those have been in the telco space, and basically I have a team of people that look after and drive value for customers, not just in AI, but outside of AI in other areas such as sales, marketing, commerce, analytics, etc. within the telco arena.
And lastly but not least, Chris?
Chris Williams. I'm CIO at Community Fibre. Been in the organisation now for just over 3 years. I'm a veteran, I suppose is the best way to describe it, of the telecoms industry. So I've done 25 years now. So my history goes back to Orange when it was just a 2G network, and then through EE, BT, and then on to Community Fibre. For those of you that don't know Community Fibre, we are a small but growing London-based altnet, and a company that's rapidly changing and rapidly scaling to try and meet the needs of our customers.
Fantastic. So shall we get stuck in with some questions? How I'd like to play this is kind of start with a question and then just everybody, and I'll sort of pick on one of you if you don't mind to sort of lead that, and then we'll go around the team. It's going to be an open and fluid discussion. And if we do have any questions, I think they might come up from the audience, don't know. But let's kick off. So what I'd like to do, if I may, is just have a sort of broad view of AI and then move down into the specific topic of AI agents and agentic. So the first question I have is, and Chris, I'd like you to sort of start with this one, if I may, seeing as you're there already, which is, how do you see AI reshaping the workforce in the next, let's say, 5-year horizon?
Yeah, look, I think AI is a real inevitability in the organization. I think the interesting thing for me is whether we'll recognize AI doing that reshaping, or whether it will be just a natural progression for us. But I think everybody probably on this call is using AI already in some form every day, whether we realize it or not. But the critical thing for me in terms of reshaping is it has to force us to be a better organization. It has to add value. There has to be a business case around it. And I think in 5 years' time, we really won't necessarily know in all cases whether we're talking to a human or robot, whether we're interacting with automation, or whether we're interacting with a person. And it has to become really natural for us to do that, and natural for us to interact in those ways. So I think from a workplace perspective, it should make us far more efficient. It should shape the types of people that we need in our organizations. But I think that also is going to be the measure of success for us as to how well we implement AI.
Thanks so much. I think it'd be useful to get sort of some industry perspectives of the workforce. So in terms of specific examples, so Jimmy, in what you're doing, is there any specific workplace examples you can give us of things that have changed and will change?
I think the first one is that ChatGPT is the one that we're all familiar with, because it was kind of first to market. I think employees are using it more now to write emails and assist with communication on a personal level. And I think something that will become quite important, certainly this year, is companies getting control of that AI instance and that support function, because what you'll see is people are using their personal emails and they're signing up for accounts, and then they're saying, help me write this email, and they're copying and pasting company information into an AI agent to get a response. And if you have control of that, I think that's the first step that companies will start to see. Certainly from our perspective, I know I can name probably at least a dozen people in the business that live and breathe by it and swear by it every day. That they will check every email, they'll look at different opportunities, and they'll take data into it as well and just analyze it. So it has become helpful, and already we're starting to see it. And I'll definitely talk a little bit later on about where I think it'll start to shape places. But I think customer services is probably going to be a really key area for a lot of businesses, where you've probably already seen it in a lot of businesses, but I think you'll start to see more of that pull through in the next sort of 12 to 24 months for most companies.
Okay. Well, I think we'll get some inevitable frustration, or we are getting that with the chatbots and whatnot. So I think the integration of that with human will be excellent. I don't know if Jessica, if you've got any sort of thoughts on that in terms of how you see the workplace. You probably see so many use cases of customers. Have you got any examples of where it's changing?
Definitely. And I was actually just going to add to Jimmy's point. A lot of the conversations I'm having at the moment are about cybersecurity and about GDPR and how do we protect data in this new AI world. We can all see the benefits of AI, ChatGPT. The reason we use it is because we know it adds value to us. We like it. The reason people copy and paste is because they want it. It's how, exactly like Jimmy said, it's how we help businesses to control that and do that in the right way. I don't know if anybody saw last year, there's quite a lot of negative press of where things have been leaked, things have been shared. Of course, we don't want that happening for any of our customers. So how can we provide that and support our customers, so the businesses we work with, to use this internally and also externally with their customers, but to do this in a safe way, so it protects the data, it protects the reputation, the brand, but also they can still realize those benefits from the AI itself. We have so many use cases at Salesforce. We have over 150,000 customers, and we are talking about AI, whether it be predictive, prescriptive, generative, or autonomous, every day. And the use cases, or the real life use cases, exactly as I think Chris mentioned, it's not just about AI, it's about using it in the right way with the right business value case.
Yep.
So we'll see consistent themes. We'll see people using it to help generate emails, to help identify new opportunities in the analytical sense or in a kind of written word sense. And that's quite consistent regardless of the industry, but specifically in telecommunications, we're seeing a real rise in helping our customers to reduce non-revenue generating activity, all the admin stuff, the stuff that lives on Excel. How can we actually automate that and use AI to do that, so that the teams can focus on selling or complex servicing or being out in the field, whatever they need to do, and take away that manual workload. So I think the use cases are vast, and the most important bit that I'm seeing, and as I say, reiterate what Chris said, is it's that business value case. Rather than littering AI everywhere, how can we make sure that it's used in the right way and safely and securely?
Yeah. And Mark, just to pick up on Jessica's point about use cases, because you'll hear this a lot from me. I'm a very practical kind of consultant, and I'd like to really get under the skin of what are we doing in the industry? Are there any, without giving any names away, of course, but are there any, maybe focusing on telecoms and technology, are there any use cases that you could just specifically talk about where you've seen some improvements?
I think Jess just highlighted that we're in the early stages of automation, where automation makes sense. So, put simply, at one end of the spectrum, you've got simple FAQ, control of simple FAQ capabilities at one end, all the way to quite imaginative conversations that we're currently having, where we're talking to a large carrier at the moment around how do they front an incoming RFP process for a particular service capability that carrier provides, and getting the agent to very quickly almost sort of answer the RFQ, RFP, whatever it might well be, process, and then pass over to a human to top and tail it. So, you got at one end of the spectrum, you got very simple questions and answers. That's an obvious place to go hunt, and the technology's there. At the other end, you could really push the boundaries and start getting it to start bid for work for you, and everything in between. It's really wide and varied. Sales is a heavy adopter. It's starting to become a heavy adopter in terms of how do they get, how do you segment quicker? How do you push stuff to the top of the funnel that's in a priority way, rather than just shooting at everything. Similarly with marketing, service is clearly a big area, and how do we bring sales and service together? So it's really, really, really wide and varied, Arun.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just from our experience in the consulting world, which is sales funnel is critical. The use of integrating learning about news releases, press releases on individuals and companies, feeding that into your Salesforce CRM to sort of say, well, let's send them an email and aggregate that information, because next time you speak to them, you'll forget what happened last time. So I think having the AI tool to kind of remind you and even draft an email based upon that is super powerful. But I think
just to build on that, Arun, at the other end of the spectrum, using AI during that conversation to summarize for the seller.
Yes, absolutely.
What happened, next actions, so it's a complete flow. So from the inception of let's go and have that conversation through to what did that conversation throw out as a set of actions, and how do we close that loop?
Okay, so yeah, that's brilliant. So the reason I mentioned that was a cunning segue into the next question. where we're combining the use of different information and different AI tools into one, which, and Jessica, I think you're very passionate about this, I know from our previous conversation and what you've already said. I'd like to direct this one at you, if you don't mind, which is about getting more under the skin of AI agents now. So I think we on this team, and certainly a lot of our colleagues, are quite comfortable with understanding AI in isolation, but it's about bringing it together. So what I'd like to ask you is, obviously the AI agents is talked about as the next big thing, and I've mentioned the 41 billion a report that I saw this morning. But what exactly are AI agents, and why do they matter to us so much?
Really good question, Arun. So when we traditionally think of AI, we think of AI predicting something for us, telling us something from the information we already have. In recent years, since ChatGPT, which we've already been mentioning, that's something called generative AI. And that's where we see AI beginning to create something new for us, new emails, new content, new images or videos. Agentic AI takes that even further. So when we say AI agents or autonomous AI, agentic AI is what we mean. So that agentic AI can intelligently take action on the information that it's got. So rather than just using it to predict something or using it to create something, it's actually taking action on it. Now, what underpins these AI agents or these agentic AI is actually reasoning engines. Now, these reasoning engines are what make it different. They are what make it think like we do as humans. So agentic AI takes that next step. It has got a very human-like feel to it. It's very difficult to tell sometimes if it's a human or if it's an agent. But those reasoning engines think the same way you or I do. So they have the logic, they have that reasoning, they make a decision based on the information they have, but they not only make that decision, they can execute upon it. So, for example, if I am a customer and I reach out to my mobile provider and I say, hang on a minute, my data roaming charges are through the roof. I'm so angry. Can you sort it for me? Previously, AI would say, yes, roaming charges are through the roof because of this. You need to call this person. Now, agents can take that information, say the reason that it's so high is because of this. So therefore, the remedial effort we need to do is this. Here's a better plan you could be on or a travel add-on you could buy. But rather than leaving it there, they go, let me do that for you. Let me take that order, put that order through the system and bill your account. So it's that end-to-end complex processing, which just wasn't possible before, that is unlocked by using agentic AI. The agents themselves, I think we were having a discussion before, and I talked to a lot of customers about it, going, well, are they all on their own or do they require humans? Now, I think the way that I like to think of it anyway is that agentic AI is meant to be autonomous. It's meant to do things for you. It's meant to take that action. It's got sophisticated reasoning and the iterative planning to solve those complex problems. However, for a lot of customers, they still want a human to be an escalation point. If you have something sensitive or if there's some really complex issue that might not have happened before, there still needs to be an escalation point, whether that be another agent or to a human. So it's very different, but there's still a limit in my eyes at the moment of what companies are willing to enable agents to do, and they still like to have that fallback of passing on to or giving to a human and having that human in the loop, we like to call it here at Salesforce.
Okay, wow, that was a really wonderful answer. Thank you, Jessica. Really, really enlightened by that. Not sure how we can follow on from that brilliant explanation, but so in summary, then it sounds as if agentic really is more proactive than reactive, in that it's kind of like sort of predicting and initiating actions, not just you feeding it and waiting for getting answers back, right? It sounds like more to it than that, but just a summary kind of thing. And the other thing it feels like is that the agentic is becoming more like a teammate rather than just a tool, because it's more human from what I can hear. So just to build on that, does anyone else have any sort of experience with AI agents and explain how it's used in the workforce?
Aaron, I think.
Oh, go on. You go, Chris.
Okay, I was going to say, I think just following on now from what Jessica was saying, I think there are a few critical points and considerations, and I think we'd all like to unleash our agents onto the general public and try and provide that seamless AI service to our customers. The big question for me though has been how to do that, and where should you be starting with external use cases, or where do you need an internal use case first to really make sure and validate the agent and the quality of the information getting back? I think it also relies on us having a level of data and data quality that needs to be much higher than we probably have needed in the past, and curated knowledge as well, things that we're happy that our business says to that customer. And that really, again, has to be up to date, accurate. How are we maintaining, managing that data? But also understanding things like how we're going to measure it. How do we know that it's successful with our customer? What's it doing to our NPS? What's it doing to our CSAT? And then finally, IT is not 100%. So what's the backup? You know, if you get to the point where you remove 3/4 of your agents because you've got this amazing AI experience, and then you have an IT problem, which means you can't use them, what is the backup, and how are we doing it? So I think that it has to be the way forward. It has to be the future. I'm sure we're all planning these projects that will deliver it. But I think there's those really fundamental points that are quite important to answer as we're going through the process.
Okay. Mark or Jimmy, do you want to add anything to that in terms of your experience with specifically agentic or agents?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and just to echo what Jessica and Chris have said, is I think it's about finding the right fit for the agents and for AI within your business. I think there's a real gap within telecoms where we can be really smart, and I do believe there is a global business doing this already, but to manage sort of network resources, so to look at the network and predict when failures are going to happen, so we can be smarter about the customer experience before the customer even knows there's a problem. So those agents can then react and either inform the relevant teams. So humans are still massively important as part of this to be able to create the right structure for them. But you know, how can we build something that creates network efficiencies within telecoms? I think is something that will evolve in the next several years. I think it'll take time to get confidence with it, but again, it's if you connect the agents to the right parts of the network and give it the rules, then it should be able to help detect at an early stage whether there's going to be problems, which will then help improve customer performance and CSAT and give better experiences all around.
Okay.
Just to add to that as well, if I may, Arun, that exactly like Jimmy was just saying there, we kind of coined a phrase at Salesforce called we call it the digital workforce. So agents to us, we use them in our daily life. They are part of our digital workforce. They are there to help us. I have a digital twin at work. It's there not to replace me, it's there to help me, to enable me to focus on the highest value pieces of work and enable me to not have to do all the manual stuff that can automate for me. And I think that's really important to bear in mind going forward of this. The humans will always be needed. Humans will always need to have to do something. It's just the type of work they do is likely to change. And I think that's where we get the most value, or where I'm seeing the biggest returns. We always do value cases on agents. The highest returns are where the agents are working in conjunction with the human workforce to drive better results, whether that be CSAT, revenue, reducing admin costs or cost to serve. That's where we're seeing the biggest growth areas at the moment.
Jessica, I'm really interested in the concept of a digital twin. I know my family would hate to see another version of me, but what I'd like to understand is just if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit, what does that look like? What is a digital twin?
So there's multiple different examples of it, but for example, at Salesforce, if I have an agent that will respond and write emails for me. So it will say it's from my agent, it comes from my email, but it writes the emails for me. Now, this is just an example, particularly if we get huge high volumes of emails, it's grounded in the information that I've given it. It's got that level of clarity of what am I doing, what's my role, what data does it need? We have a product at Salesforce called a Sales Development Representative Agent that works on exactly the same framework. So if you ever get interactions with certain companies, it might say at the bottom from X agent, whatever the company decides to call it, and it would say that it's somebody's agent. So it's associated with a human, but it's an agent responding to questions. Because we all know that fortunately, we can't always get through all our inbox. There are delays, there are things that we might need some additional support with. And those agents are there to help us to do that. Obviously, it doesn't do everything, and I'm not going to pretend like it does. There are lots of things that I still need to do on my own, and I still need to take that ownership, but I have control of that, and it massively helped from a productivity and efficiency standpoint.
Okay. Okay. And are those tools? I guess it's a question for Mark and yourself. Are those tools things that Salesforce build for customers, or are they sort of, do you use a lot of Salesforce tools plus other companies' tools and put them together?
So that's all on Salesforce. We have a number
Really?
of
Wow.
customers live with that now at the moment as well.
Wow, to have a conversation with you after this about that. I'd love someone to help me write my emails because I get millions a day. So, okay, does anyone have any, before we sort of move on a little bit, does anyone have any more comments they want to add relating to AI agents specifically to set the scene for us? No? Okay, excellent. So what I'd like to do is think of the human side of things a little bit more and how we work with these tools and processes. And I'd like to ask, maybe Mark would be probably a good one for this in terms of looking at the skills and mindsets. So my question to you is, what new skills and mindsets or ways of thinking will workers, employees and business owners need to stay relevant in an AI-driven world?
Okay, yeah, sure. There's a lot to think about there. There's a lot to digest. I think we've touched on some of that already in some of the questions that have been asked. But I guess the key thing is, and it's not peculiar to telco, although we're all on this call because we're interested in the telco marketplace, is that we need to recognize that the AI is reshaping jobs rather than replacing them. Yes, I guess in the fullness of time we'll start to see a declining workforce where automation is concerned. Maybe not a declining workforce, maybe a repurposing of the current workforce, but certainly a slower climb in headcount growth. But it's AI should augment roles rather than remove them. That's certainly what we see in the sort of short medium term. So employers, organizations need to embrace AI under a sort of an adopt a beginner's mindset in many ways. How do we continually learn, and how do we use and leverage AI? But let's not forget we need to focus on humans' core competencies, because nobody's yet been able to build models where we can replicate the human, the living species that we are. In practical terms, I guess this boils down to a few questions. So what skills are important in an AI-driven workplace? I think the high demand, and I think this has been touched on already, certainly a high demand area for me is skills specifically around AI, machine learning, literacy, predictive analytics, cybersecurity, Jess mentioned. But then, how do we bring that into specific disciplines such as sales and marketing? How do we leverage that? So skills about leveraging. How do we communicate with AI, and how do we drive the best out of it? There are obviously key technical skills that need to be in place around AI and data. Chris mentioned data. That is absolutely key and a blocker for many. But let's flip the coin. What does AI not do? And it will not replace the softer skills. So critical thinking, challenging thinking, adaptability, EQ, and collaboration with AI itself. So I guess it's about how do we have a growth mindset? How do we get AI? How do we take AI and drive it for a better outcome for the business and for its customers, customer-centric modeling and our different go-to-market models. I think the flip side of it is, if they're the positives, if they are, what skills do we need? What skills will AI start to negate? It's things as simple as manual data entry, scripted call center roles, rule-based decision making. That's what we see starting to move towards the agentic layer. And Jess already mentioned this. Whilst that's true, we don't, we very much believe in the human in the loop. So it's a model where the human retains it, or is the ultimate judge and jury on an outcome or a process. We use AI to augment the flow of work, but AI doesn't own necessarily the outcome.
Okay.
Can I just add to that, Arun, as well,
Yes,
if
absolutely.
possible? That as humans, we all natively are attracted to the emotion side of things. That EQ piece Mark was talking about. That's why a lot of people still prefer in the supermarkets to get served by somebody rather than use the self-checkouts. It's human nature. We want that conversation. We want that interaction, the emotion behind it. So even though AI might and the agentic AI agents can be used for so many different things, there will still be instances where people would prefer to go to a human, and that natural behavior is something that can be managed, and that a decision can be made on where's the best and most appropriate place to take this. However, it is natural human instinct to go to other humans, so therefore that's still going to have a place and unlikely to change in the short term.
Okay. So in terms of skills, maybe Chris, I'd like to, if you don't mind, ask you about that a bit more, because coming from industry more specifically, what sort of skills and mindsets are you having to as a CIO kind of think about instilling within your team?
Yeah, look, I think there's two or three key points to this. The first one for me is it's definitely affected the way that I've recruited and the types of people I want. And in reality now, things are changing so quickly that I'm recruiting less on specific skills and more on the ability to change, the adaptability of that individual. How data driven they are. Do they understand how to give great customer experience, and do they understand how to make money, the sales side of things, even in an IT role? And I think IT is becoming more of the business and almost eating into the business to some degree. So that's a real consideration now when I'm recruiting. The second thing is for me is we've got organizations of great people more often than not, and we need to give those people the opportunity as well, I think. So how do we train them? How do we develop them? How do we give them time actually to play with the technology, to understand it, to be able to use that technology in their day-to-day lives? I think is really critical as well. The third thing though is for me is whatever you do, it still comes back to that business case. And I know we're saying and this is a question about skills and mindsets, but what I'm trying to instill into my team and when I'm talking to people is don't ask the question about where can AI be used. Don't ask the question can you automate something? Just reverse the question and start with where do you need human judgment? Where do you need a human? And then assume that everything else can be automated or you can apply AI to. And it changes the roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of focuses things on where we'll get best value.
So that's a good point. So I had a question related exactly to that point, which is where do we need a human? So this is for everybody really, but where do we draw the line? What sort of topics or it's not topics, areas must we be sort of careful that this has to be dealt with by a human rather than a machine? Could you maybe shed some light on that? Yeah, go ahead.
So I think from our perspective in telecoms, we are thinking about AI all the time, and the human element is, you've got to make decisions, and we shouldn't rely on a computer to make decisions, regardless of whether it might make the right decisions. We have some judgment in there, and that judgment is something that I don't think you can ever teach, and maybe will be proved wrong in years to come. But if you're doing fundraising for a business, you have to sit in front of those investors and pitch those requirements and why you need the money, where you're going to spend the capital. And you might have used AI to get to that point to present that, but that human interaction is critical. And I think customers are becoming savvy to AI and to not wanting to speak to. I think Jess made a really, really good point around the checkouts in supermarkets. I think customers feel the same in telecoms. I don't want to speak to a chatbot, a robot. I don't want to have an email that's automatically replied to. I want to speak to someone on the phone. I want to have that customer engagement. And I think people would prefer to pay a premium for that sometimes in today's world. So humans are so important within business, and we shouldn't displace them at any point. And Chris's point around, let's look at what we need to make a decision on first, and then AI will follow. AI will just slot into the areas where we see fit, or someone has a great idea and says, well, we're wasting a bit of time there. Let's see if we can be more efficient with a tool that can help us, or like Salesforce provider, they can offer you something that could integrate with your systems and do that job for you. So yeah, from my perspective, we will need to make those decisions, or humans will need to make those decisions in lots of different areas of the business, in nearly all of them. We just add those efficiencies in with AI over the top.
Okay. I guess so. I have one question on that, if anyone can help answer this, which is regarding the skills and mindset. So I'm just, in my business, we need to keep skilled, upskilled. And so my comment will be, well, here's the budget, go and learn about AI, right? And then the question we ask is where do we start, right? So where would you recommend for anyone on this who's listening to this call, where would you recommend that, if you have any examples of where one could start and try these things out? Because it's quite tricky to get off the ground. I mean, ChatGPT was easy because you just have to do the paid subscription and off you go. But that's now become kind of run of the mill now, in a sense. So any suggestions for where we can go and how we could train our teams up?
Well, I'm going to jump in there just with a framework for that. I'll let the people who run businesses, I'll let Chris and Jimmy probably answer that better, given they are grappling with this topic now. I think the important thing is that you get to a common level of understanding within there. You create a positive AI culture, an umbrella of AI is here for the good. It's good for us all as individuals, so that you almost walk your employee force into wanting to embrace this and wanting their roles to adapt. So it's about how you talk about AI and its benefit internally, I think, so that people want to jump in and get on with it. But I'll cut to Chris and Jimmy, who are probably grappling with where do they start with this in their businesses.
I can answer that to start with, if you like, and Jimmy, if you're right, chipping in after. I mean, I start with a business problem. So, I mean, that's the simple thing. Don't worry about the technology so much, but start with the business problems every time. And for us, the biggest problems in our business, or in my business, is how do I make sure that we're efficient as a business, and where are the biggest areas of inefficiency? Where are the areas that the customers find it difficult to deal with us? And look for solutions there. By the way, I think it's more of a generational than an entirely a human thing in terms of dealing with people. If I look at anything transactional, my daughter, who's a Gen Z, would be absolutely happy to deal with a machine. She would not want to speak to a human. She'd rather do chatbot than phone somebody up, definitely. And she'd rather just do a transaction as opposed to even interact with a chatbot, frankly. I'd definitely, I'd always start with the problems. what is the thing that you want to address, and apply the technology to the problem more than the other way around.
Yeah, and I think from our side, completely agree with all of that, Chris. And I think it's understanding who in the business needs to have that level of AI education. Not everyone needs it right now. I think it's important that people are aware of it. We run constant reminders and training and security, as you can expect, training sessions, and it's inevitable we'll start to slot AI training sessions in within the business. But the most important thing is those people that do get involved will need to understand the inputs and the outputs of what they're reading and whether it's right. You need to know that what the output is actually right, because otherwise, and again, you might be generational, but the Gen Z employees that come through into the business might just think that the computer's always right, and it might not always be right. So I think, yeah, for us, it's about making sure the right people are educated within your organization, and that they understand what's going in and what's coming out. And then those systems that are autonomous, so the agentic tools, need to be set up correctly so that they're tested thoroughly for businesses to make this critical decisions on them. If we have a decision within our business that AI produced and it had analysed data, we'd still take it to the chief exec and run it by him just to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I still think you need that seal of approval.
Just to pick up on that, Jimmy, some excellent points that I wanted to pick up on, which is regarding well, I always call it rubbish in, rubbish out, right? So if you're searching for a topic or to write a report and it's using it, I think the problem I face is that if the information isn't there, then the AI tool will make stuff up, hallucinate a little bit based upon a related report that is technically incorrect. And in our telecoms world, you can't be technically incorrect, right? So one of the things, as I'm going through this discussion, and I'd like to spend a couple of minutes at the end, I'm summarizing some learnings, just a couple of words for each learning. And one of the things that hasn't come up yet, which I wanted to throw in the pot, if anyone's got any views on this, is that because we're so reliant and we trust what comes out of the tools, and absolutely Gen Z and the millennials do just trust it and say, well, it has to be true because that's God, right? And is a process for testing or spot testing and auditing the outputs and the results in terms of, well, this business makes these decisions. I'm going to give you, someone brought up their daughter, so I wanted to do that as well, reciprocate, which is that my daughter got told by her bank that the bank's they're closing the account down because the systems made up some rubbish about her behavior, which was just a normal sort of behavior, and nobody could tell her, nobody could say why the bank closed it down, and so they just closed it down, and everything's gone in the account. So that's a silly decision which a human cannot respond to. So what's anyone got any views on that, which is more about sort of policing, but having a governance framework around the decisions that are being made, or is it too early for that yet?
I can have a stab at that one. I think Mike's just put it in the question and answers as well, that actually it's AI, and we'll see it more and more, and we've seen the EU start to introduce, as much as talks going on in London as well, about regulation around AI. Now that's to do with the ethical usage, that's to do with how we actually putting in the guardrails, we call them, which mean that we protect people, we protect users and businesses to make sure that it's used in the right way. Now, reasoning in your situation or in other situations where people actually go, hang on a minute, how did you come to that decision? Depending on the types of models you use, you can actually see that reasoning behind. You can see how it's come to that. Now, whether that's rightly or wrongly it's made that decision, that's what those ethical AI principles are being put in place to make sure the people are protected. ethical AI is a heavily discussed topic at the moment. There is no wonder answer, I don't think, yet, because this technology is changing all the time. People don't know what's going to happen in 6 months, never mind 6 years. So the regulation, I think, will be an ever-evolving process, and the ethics regarding how we use it, whether we use it in certain industries or certain use cases or for certain individuals. Accessibility is a big piece at the moment as well, with how can AI help accessibility, but in what instances does it hinder it, and how do we need to make those conscious decisions to protect individuals and businesses alike. Don't know if Mark had anything else to add on that, because I know we've been talking about it a bit recently.
I'm very sorry, I missed the initial question. I had to duck out. I had an emergency at the door.
It's okay. I think well, I mean, if you don't mind, Jessica. Jessica, did you want to? Is there a specific thing you wanted Mark to comment on, given your previous conversation?
No, we're just talking about the ethics. It's a big part of Salesforce, making sure that we're working with the regulators, whether that be in telecommunications or financial services. So it's heavily discussed internally and pivotal to our AI strategy to make sure we get this right.
Yeah, I mean, way before AI even came to the fore, we have an Office of Ethical Use for all of our capabilities and go-to-market solutions. So it's something that figures very heavily in our culture, actually.
Okay. Well, again, you've managed to segue into a topic that I really wanted to bring up, which is around the whole governance and ethics. So, I'm kind of an ambassador for my other daughter's school regarding this, in terms of how to make sure that mental health issues are not compromised, etc. And one of the things that is happening is that people want answers in a millisecond, right? And if you don't get it, it causes frustration. And the other, what goes with that is that we end up almost this sort of rise in ADHD and sort of stress levels are so massive within the younger generation, even older generation. I'm certainly suffering from that in my industry, because you have to respond immediately. You have to keep on looking for information quickly, and your brain doesn't get enough time to compute. Plus the information we're getting, I'm sure you've heard of the uncanny valley, where we're not sure if it's real or not, is a mental health, causing mental health issues. So I think there is. I agree with you. There needs to be a lot of debate and discussion around governance to make sure that this doesn't run away and cause a lot of the issues that mobile phones did, say 10, 20 years ago. Does anyone have any sort of strong views on that, or am I preaching to the converted?
No, I think it's a really good point to make, and I think we are in danger of slowing areas of businesses down with AI, because it's about, I think what we've talked about is upskilling people and getting businesses to understand the outputs and, at the pace that it produces outputs as well. So there's always going to be a technical requirement and sort of a barrier that will slow businesses down, because there's going to be more data produced, there's going to be more information, and then will there be inconsistency in some of those data points and issues, and then do you need more people to upskill to have a look at those different challenges from a technical perspective? So that is a risk, which is why I think it's, from a governance side, we need to make sure we put right procedures in place if you deploy anything AI within a business. And I think, Jessica, I think you talked about GDPR before. So from a regulatory point of view, telecoms companies are frightened to death of putting a foot wrong, and rightfully so. We're handling, certainly from our perspective, customer data all the time. We have to protect that and look after that. Otherwise, there's huge fines involved. So it's, how do we make sure that data is secure? How do we follow any regulatory compliance? Certainly with GDPR is the first one, as that evolves, and making sure that any AI sort of driven solutions that we would put around that are, I guess, protecting and ticking the right boxes.
Okay, Jessica, again, thank you for reminding me about the fact that there's a Q&A button, which I just found. So I'd just like to respect the fact that couple of questions. And anyone in the audience listening has any questions, please feel free to type them in, and we'll try to address them. So forgive me if I pronounce it, but I presume it's Jose. It says Jose Cardenas has asked a question, so generally, which is, do you think AI agents and automation could help to improve the performance of your reps by implementing follow-up in the conversations and assist the reps with real-time training or advice to win more deals? I think that might be a good one for Chris. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I think there's so many things that you can do with those conversations as you go through. I think you can, using AI, understand the intent of the customer calling to help the agent get off to a flying start. I think that's really critical. I think you can understand the sentiment of the customer as you go through one of those calls. I think that's super critical. Is the agent hitting the mark with that customer? If not, then might need to take a different approach. I think you can pick up on actions and things that agents have agreed during that conversation, and I think that's quite often a big miss. And I think one of the main reasons for complaints, as well as the initial problem, is quite often how that agent has dealt with and the follow-up from that call. So I think that's another one. I think the training is definitely another one. Process adherence, policy adherence, those kind of things. Super easy because it's relatively factual, and as long again as you've got the curated knowledge, you can bring that data in and get the AI agent to be looking at that and comparing it with the actual conversation itself. So I think there's a host of opportunities in that space. The other advantage, of course, of starting with agents first in that co-pilot style is if you're thinking of putting something externally, the agent can also give a human view as to how good the experience it was for the agent in that interaction as well, so that you can get the agent to score the AI, which is also quite useful. As your confidence builds and you get to 95% confident, it probably means the AI is good enough to be unleashed on the customer as well, more directly.
Okay. And yeah, so I'll come back to another question that we have in a moment, but I wanted to just kind of throw out there about the ethical side of things still. Has anybody on this call heard of the trolley problem with AI? I have to bring this up. I do in every AI discussion I have. Is anyone familiar with that?
No.
So it's a major ethical dilemma, which I'm probably going to explain it quite badly, but I'll try. So it's if you've got a lever and you've got a train running towards 5 people that are tied up on the track, and you've got if you pull the lever, it goes to another way, which you basically would swerve to hit another passenger. Which one do you choose? The point is that if you're applied to the automotive industry, this is something that is used a lot, which is, the dilemma is, do you let nature take its course, or do you kill the driver, or do you kill the pedestrian to make it safe? And this is a problem, a dilemma that AI has, and it's plaguing a lot of the decision making. So if you've not heard of it, it's a good one to sort of think about. But I guess the moral dilemma is, when do you think that it goes back to my question about drawing the line, and I wondered if any of you had any sort of views on whether you think it's always right to trust the AI results, or what can we do to make sure that there's some controls? Does anyone have any views on that?
I think I can answer that, and I think it segues into a question from Matthew as well, which is he's asked the question of do you only need a human if the automation fails, or do you want a human full stop? My kids want the robot, I want the human. Is it an age thing? So I think there's a bit of similarity with that. So I think the key thing regarding that is Arun, is younger generations are always going to want an instant result and an automated response. Whereas I think the different generations that you know we're part of, I think we valued the human interaction a bit more and maybe more for complex issues as well. We just need to remind everyone that AI is there to enhance and not replace. So routine tasks, fine, step in for it, make it seamless. But if there's a human handoff, then I think that is a really, really important part of that to make sure that we don't fall down anywhere. So yeah, I'm not for the robot yet, but yeah.
Right, so that's Matthew's question answered. Mark Ann, there's a question there, which is what might the role of AI agents in the area, what might be the role of AI agents in the area of cybersecurity? That might be one for you again, Jimmy, or for Chris.
Yeah, we're already using AI quite heavily in security, I have to say, and I think from my perspective, you get so much data. You get so much data in that space. There are so many places to look. So I think some of the AI's ability to look across a huge data set, correlations, picking out the things that are most critical, making decisions before a human has an opportunity to make a mistake is another one. Yeah, we've got some really good use cases, and it's everything from email to traditionally some of the things that maybe the SOC service will have done, as well as allowing us to correlate further data sets and look for new and explore new patterns in terms of behavior externally to our, coming into our network from external.
Okay. We're kind of running out of time. So there's one more question, which is how far are we from stepping between agentic AI and general AI? At this point, how will we ensure that humans remain looped into all decision making? I think we've kind of just touched on that, but is any final comments on that one?
I think that just the piece that I'd say on that is that it really depends on the use case. It depends on the regulation that we will inevitably see in the next 6 months. I think I don't think they're used separately. There is an overlap. And the agentic AI is an extension of the predictive, the generative, the stuff that we're using already. How and when we choose to do that, what industries, what use cases, I think that will be what changes over time. But it will definitely be an extension of one or the other, if that makes sense, rather than to be used completely separately.
Right. Okay. So just to wrap things up then. So what we've learned there's lots of things we've learned. Amazing conversation. Thank you so much to all of you. But I think that as Jessica mentioned, that AI agents are more about predictability rather than sort of inputs from and giving you information. So prediction. The second thing is that we need to be able to report on the benefits to make sure we don't just use this aimlessly and there is an ROI involved. I think my particular favorite was backup, and having a backup plan, which goes hand in hand with having an audit plan to make sure that decisions aren't incorrect. One of the comments was made that this is reshaping, not replacing roles, which I quite liked. And also, I think there's a big cultural change that needs to happen. And I think that the cultural divide of sort of, let's say, us oldies and the up and coming generation is basically that there's a sort of a feeling that we're all stupid because we're not kind of using this stuff enough. And I think that divide is becoming, if any of you have got kids, is becoming pretty massive. And it's becoming really hard for people that have got wisdom throughout the years in business to get roles because people are looking for these sorts of skills as a prime. So I think that's sort of something. So does anyone have any final comments, sort of words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the industry before we wrap up?
No, just good luck and enjoy using these new tools and these new opportunities.
Yeah, just I think I wrote something down before, which was just just put in place some strict governance, clear decision boundaries, and make sure that you're transparent with the reasoning of what you're trying to put into it. And I think then you'll have a much better path with AI.
Okay. Thank you to all the panelists, Jessica, Chris, Mark, and Jimmy. I'm sure this might be recorded somewhere eventually, but thanks to all for the questions, and look forward to speaking with any of you in the future if you need any support with this. So thank you very much, and thanks to Salesforce, of course, for hosting, sponsoring this for us. Thank you very much.